In January 1993, as the first anniversary of the fire neared, the Innu shocked the world once more. They released a videotape showing a group of Innu children determined to commit suicide. The sight of children attempting mass suicide sent the international media converging on Davis Inlet in an attempt to discover how an enlightened country like Canada could produce such a vision of youthful despair. Shortly after that, the Canadian Human Rights Commission released its report condemning the federal government's treatment of the Innu. It recommended, among other things, a move to a new community. The Innu waited 10 years for the move. During those 10 years, the federal government, through the offices of Health Canada and Indian Affairs, failed its obligation to help the Innu heal in preparation for the move.
Nothing really had changed between '93 and 2002. That education was just as bad as it was, if not worse, and the health problems seemed to be, in many respects, exactly the same sort of health problems.
I think these petty civil servants, because it's quite often not at the ministerial level, it's some kind of mid-level, love playing these kind of games. They seem to set things up to fail.
And we're still looking forward that these things might come someday. And we're still waiting.
And while they waited for help, many Innu died. In the intervening 10 years, so many committed suicide that in 1999, Survival International declared the Innu to have the highest suicide rate in the world.
Every single family here is touched by a suicide, often that they witnessed themselves.
I'm so grateful that they are out of it, just so grateful. But so sad because so much of the culture was left there, within those graves too.
Nancy Jack, she shot herself with a rifle. He set himself on fire. So is this one. She also committed suicide. She hung herself. This girl here also committed suicide, Antonia Jakovic. She shot herself with a .22 in the stomach. This one as well, Johnny Piwash. He's in his teens. I think it was a shotgun, I'm not sure. I didn't realize how many people committed suicide until I got here.
My brother, he killed himself when he was drinking. He was only like probably 17 or 18 when he killed himself.
Yes, I still think that as well, that even though that my little boy had died 3 years, even though that I really had problems coping with that, and still that, I still got my daughter here, that's what keeps me going.
Year after year, tragedy after tragedy, the neglect continued and Innu's suffering mounted. Some sought justice for their pain. In 1997, long-suppressed stories of sexual abuse emerged.
That's the same building that my father took abuse. And I went through that abuse too, sexual abuse. In the same building. And the church and the school and the people said, forget about this. How can you forget things like this?
We don't build or plan to build a safe house for children at risk. We have no shelter for women who are abused. We have no treatment center for those with substance abuse problems, no detoxification center, no courthouse. None of these absolute essential items, essential to any healing. And you ask, what have we done about justice?
And the Innu continued to draw international attention. In 1999, Survival International embarrassed the Canadian government with a publication comparing the plight of the Innu to the persecuted Tibetans of China. In December 2000, the children of Davis Inlet took their community to the world stage once more. It was almost a repeat of the 1993 gas-sniffing crisis. 40 children were flown out of Davis Inlet to the province's capital city to be treated for gas sniffing. Dr. Ted Rosales, pediatrician and geneticist, headed up the treatment team. He discovered a bigger problem than gas sniffing. Almost 3/4 of the 40 Innu children were found to have fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, permanent brain damage, for which they needed long-term treatment.
These children had a lifelong problem, and we did not address the lifelong problem that they have. It didn't do the Innu children any good.
While the federal government spent more than $6 million to refurbish an abandoned hospital and provide short-term treatment, after 4 months, the children were sent back to Davis Inlet. No provision was made for their follow-up treatment and support in Davis Inlet. The results were not surprising.
It was predicted. I predicted it because they're not going, the program that was laid out was not going to work. I told that to everybody.
Brian Dory worked 13 years with the Federal Department of Indian Affairs and the past 3 years with Health Canada as Director of Operations directly responsible for the Innu in Labrador. Health Canada and Indian Affairs would not allow Mr. Dory or any other staff member to be interviewed for this documentary. In October of 2003, Mr. Dory left the employ of Health Canada and agreed to an interview. His opinions are his own.
Those children, if we look through the process provincially, would have been involved in the ISSSP process, the Individual Service Support Plan, where all the agencies would get together, education, policing, justice, health, social services, would get together and look at that individual child's needs and develop a plan that all those parties would work together with the family to implement. I'm not aware of any individual service support plan for any of the Innu children that we had in care.
Dr. Rosales submitted a report on the health of the Innu children to the provincial health authorities. The province did not give the Innu Healing Team a copy of that report.
We asked for the reports, but we never got them. And it's strange that we haven't seen those assessments today. Dr. Rosales told us. He told us that these kids have been diagnosed as FAE and FAS.
I disagree that they go back to a community wherein there is no program, no structure to handle the problem lifelong that they have.
So who authorized the children to go back to Davis Inlet?
The Innu never authorized. I never authorized the kids to be sent back. We didn't know about the kids where they're going to be sent back, and we were really surprised that these kids were sending back. Where they were going to be sent back to, not to Davis Inlet.
Child welfare is not a Health Canada responsibility. We have health programs that can assist in it, but the initial responsibility is certainly with the province and Health Labrador Corporation.
What should have been done is not being done.
At the end of the day, we look back on it, and certainly I would say that we have failed those children that were initially in care and continue to fail the children who are in the communities of both Natwashish now and Sheshatshiu.
That failure is evident in the new community of Natwashish today.
Well, it's really sad. It's sad to see, it's sad to say, this is what was predicted. And it didn't have to be. I recognize many of them.
Look! Look at that sniffer!
The children really did not get what they needed.
We've been trying to get help from Health Labrador. We haven't received any help from them. And what they usually do is they say they'll check up on it. We never hear from them again.
There were at times were quoted high numbers of children at risk in Natwashish. Counter that with the fact there are no children in care in Natwashish was never a concept that could be bridged in my mind, how we can have so many children at risk and yet none in care.
I gotta figure out who they are first and then take them home or over to the health commission.
Are you sure they all got homes to go to?
They all have homes to go to, yeah. When they want to. They're out most of the way.
I think it's staff on the ground who are really trying to work together to help resolve issues in the community. I don't think the support mechanisms were strong enough to make that happen.
And the authorities are well aware of the extent of the problem.
Sitting through a process in which you have provincial child, youth and family services representatives, senior representatives, saying that if they had their own way, they'd take every child out of Davis Inlet, is certainly a statement which says they're aware of the magnitude of the issue.
We've been, like I said, been reporting this solvent abuse for a long, long time now. They're just waiting for the kid to turn 16, then they'll say, oh, we're no longer responsible.
So if the kid is in need, in danger, they should be removing that kid, regardless what. There should be no excuses.
I also sat in on the meeting in which the Mushuau Innu leadership, Innu Healing Team, and legal counsel said to the province, if you apprehend children in Natwashish or Davis Inlet at the time, we will not obstruct that. We will support that. That's the leadership, the healing team, and their legal counsel at that meeting making that very clear, that they saw it as an important process that needs to be done in the community to assist in the healing efforts of that community.
The programs aren't here for them to maybe get off the gas sniffing or get off the booze. You find if the parents are drinking, then the gas sniffing is going to go up in the community because the children are trying to numb themselves from what they're seeing every day. And the programs aren't here to help them.
If we do not intervene, and intervene by providing the right types of needs and programs and services for these children, we will see a repetition. It's clear. Dr. Ted Rosales was clear from the start on it when he explained it to us. He's still clear, and he knows what he's speaking of.
The best interest of the child, as described by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, are being trampled. They're being trampled.
If they were white children in the park down the street in your neighborhood, you would say, dear God, that's a cry for help. We must help them. Why do we not hear it as such when it's Aboriginal children? Why do we assume that these children are simply choosing to sniff gasoline? I don't think children make those choices. And I don't think it's fair to blame them or their parents that they've made this choice. We need to start asking ourselves some really hard questions about what it says about us as people and as human beings, that we can walk away from this mess of our making and tell the Innu it's time they cleaned it up. These are all our children, you know.
The new community of Natwashish held great promise of healing for the Innu, but the chronic problems of alcohol and substance abuse continue unabated.
It is worst. It is worst. As soon as Thursday comes, you can see people walking back and forth, drunk.
If you want people not to drink, assist them to have environments which don't drive them to drink.
Some believe each Innu must take personal responsibility and simply give up drinking.
We can understand when an individual goes off the rails and behaves irrationally and no amount of government policy could have prevented it. But the notion that a whole people would take up alcohol, that children would abuse gas sniffing and that, to imagine that this is all the individual responsibilities and that there is not some social process going on, you know, requires you to be a racist.
Why would there be any greater expectation that moving a person from Davis Inlet who had a substance abuse problem to a new house in Natwashish would result in any cure of the problem? If the person had cancer in Davis Inlet, the chances are pretty good the cancer is still going to be there in Natwashish if there's not something done in between there.
I look at people that are walking around the community, and I see them, they're in pain. What kind of pain? But it must be unbearable for them because they're still drinking heavily.
The trouble in the past has been this conviction by non-Innu that they know what's best for them.
The Innu have been very clear. They need to be involved in the decision-making process. They need to be part of including their custom, traditions, and ways into, building strong communities. They don't feel they're part of that process.
If you live most of your life not being able to provide for your children the way you want to provide, it is like every day getting up out of bed and spending the day walking on your soul. And that hurts. It hurts deeply and profoundly.
The pain that we have around here will never go away.
Those people that you see, they want to be sober. Because I know, because I've been there. I wanted to be sober. Even when I was drinking, I wanted to be sober. I wanted to find a way to stop drinking. But they need help in order to do that.